We have the usual topics: Google News, SEO news, Microsoft news, WordPress news, other news, Yoast news. There's a lot of news. I think that's the main primary keyword here. I already want to start talking about next time's SEO news webinar, because we're going to take a slightly different angle. We're going to talk about the news, absolutely, but we are also going to talk about, hey, what do you need to do to get ready for 2022? And that was rhyming. So get ready for that. Make sure to join it. We'll talk about it later again. Also, for today, if you want to learn more, see all the links that we have for stuff, go to this short URL, which I'm hoping someone will drop into the chat so that you don't have to click on all the other links in the chat. Thank you, Chaco.
Yes. Nice.
Okay, so here we go with some Google news. And what is not more fun than Google doing an update? I mean, this is what we live for, Jono, isn't it?
Well, you say that. Yeah, so this one is a bit special, I guess, in some regards. So we talk about this a lot, but Google do like 1,000 updates a year to that. Like they do hundreds and hundreds of continual tiny changes. So the idea of a Google update is a bit misleading. However, this one is one of their big special ones. It's a core algorithm update. So in theory, this might have quite a big impact across the web. A lot of these are about tackling spam and kind of clearing out the nasty lower levels of the web. So there's nothing really particularly special here. I guess the one interesting thing was the timing, that this is like a week before the biggest shopping date of the year. And a lot of businesses panicking a little bit, because if your rankings tank the day before Black Friday, that could have quite a big impact. So definitely worth keeping an eye on how you're doing your visibility. But there's nothing to do here. There's nothing to change. If you're doing the right kinds of things, you should be fine. Interestingly, some of the early observations, the research from Systrix was showing that a lot of the winners are the kind of fact and editorial sites, so things like Wikipedia, like Amazon, like dictionary sites and resources, where the losers are the kind of big sprawling open user platforms like Pinterest and stuff. So most sites shouldn't need to worry too much about this.
Okay, well, I have to admit to having a bit of an update fatigue, as in I don't care anymore when Google updates. It shouldn't really change anything for most people. This one was a bit more interesting. So page experience ranking, which is a lot of words for saying we make your site rank better if it's faster, although only tiny bits. It was only rolled out on mobile, and it's now coming to desktop. Is this going to change anything?
I don't expect to. Most desktop sites are a lot faster than mobile sites, at least when browsed on a desktop versus a mobile, because chances are you have fancy Wi-Fi and more hardware. So typically when you look at speed testing, it's the mobile version that's slower. Definitely still worth double checking your desktop experience. Is it fast for everybody? Is it fast in all conditions? Does it behave properly? Go and run the tests in the links, the Core Web Vitals stuff, the PageSpeed Insights stuff, which we'll talk about. Just make sure you're all right. But yeah, this shouldn't really cause anybody to panic too much. This is landing in February. Yeah, so you've got a bit of time to get ahead of that curve.
February is a very, very, very nice month. Just saying that.
Is it? Just in general. Is it short? Yeah.
Yeah. And it has my birthday, so
nice. There we go. Well, speaking of PageSpeed Insights,
yes.
Yeah, this is not a new tool. Chances are you might have used this and tested your website on it, but they've given it a bit of a makeover, changed the URL. This is a really quick and easy way to say, how am I scoring on desktop, for example? And if those scores are yellowy, orange, or red, then yeah, you've got a couple of months to sort things out before February. Definitely worth a look. How do I vote down on a question?
Google had to introduce a new feature where it's auto-translating results. What does this even mean, Jono?
So what they're saying is sometimes when you search in your language, and your language for a lot of people isn't English or American, there aren't a lot of good results. There aren't a lot of good websites. They don't have a good solution for you. So in those cases, they will actively translate the title and meta description in the search engine results for you, so you can see it in your language. And then when you click through, you'll get a translated version of that page. That's great for markets that obviously don't have a huge amount of tailored content. They're testing this in India. A lot of big brands just produce content in English for kind of Western markets, so this could be quite useful and helpful. Interestingly, it builds on something we covered last time, which was similar stuff happening in YouTube, where if there aren't good videos in your language, Google might auto-translate and give you captions and things. Increasingly, this is Google using their firepower to kind of universalize all content. So expect more of this. Doesn't matter what content you write in what language or what format, it's going to be universally accessible. That feels like a good thing.
Yeah, it definitely could be. We'll have to see how it works in Dutch, but
yeah, true. Difficult, right?
It's a difficult language. Okay, more exciting stuff, at least to most of the people not in India. Business profiles, they're continuously improving this. And I think basically our summary is it's all becoming Google Maps, right?
Yeah, so for many years, Google have had generations of products that they've changed and renamed and reinvented all around how do I define my opening hours and my address for my business and how do I categorize it. The latest has been Google My Business, which we've talked about a lot. That is now rebranding to Google Business Profile. So that's one part of the change, this big new brand name. But the bigger part, as you alluded to, is this is all finally just getting integrated properly into Google Maps. No longer will it be a separate thing that you have to register for and remember that it exists and find where to log in. This will all just become part of managing your listing on Google Maps. So in there, you will also say, I'm a pizzeria. We sell vegan pizza. Here are our opening hours, manage my reviews, do some posts, manage other content and stuff. All of that in one place. This is great. If you are a business owner with a physical outlet or a service area, you should be all over this. This is huge.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like a really good enhancement. And then they've also added a couple of new features to Google Maps, some of which actually look very nice. Now, this is a word that Jono and I have been looking at for several minutes. And for those of you who are native English, I am not, Jono certainly is. The word busyness spelled like this, it must be weird too.
Yeah, if you have lots of people in your shop, you've got a business with a lot of busyness.
Yes.
Yeah. What?
But it is really nice because Google had busyness within shops for a while already, but this is basically telling you whether an entire mall is busy or something like that, right?
Yeah, I use this for restaurants all the time. If I've not booked somewhere or I'm in a city that I'm not familiar with, I quite often go, okay, is this a sensible time to try and get in? It's not worth walking 20 minutes to go somewhere if Google can tell me it's likely to be full. So yeah, zooming out a bit and having that area, region, shopping mall. Maybe I don't want to be where there are lots of people for many reasons. Maybe I want to get there when it's quiet for many reasons. This feels like a really good, useful feature. Increasingly, this is rolling out everywhere. It's powered by all sorts of things, like my phone tracking where I am when I'm walking, like Google's driverless cars. There's such a huge data ecosystem here. I think we can expect more of this evolution of not just give me directions to the place, but arm me with information that will be useful to make decisions on the way and when I get there.
Yeah, it's really cool. And actually, because they launched it in conjunction with this, which is tells you what is within a place, which is really nice. And you'd think that this was already there, but it certainly wasn't, because I've searched for this sort of stuff. I'm curious how this will work when I'm within SF International. Because I'm curious whether it'll actually be able to tell me where to go, because I found this on Schiphol as well in Amsterdam. You can spend quite some time looking for a lounge because it's a rather big airport.
Yeah, and there's levels as well, and there's different routes and things. So yeah, this will need to be quite sophisticated.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that works in real thing. Now, this looks interesting, but also very American, right?
Yeah, US only, and I think initially only 30 retailers. But the idea is that I can already shop online, but now I can also manage my order status. So as soon as you've hit that buy button, now my Google Maps listing, my Google Places listing will also tell me as a user, your order has been dispatched, it's running late, it will be delivered at 3 p.m. Here's the order number you can see in the screenshot. Here's some other peripheral information. It's really bringing not just the transaction process, but the whole buying and support process into Google. Yeah, this is Google integrating with individual businesses one at a time. Maybe this will become more generally available. That'd be pretty awesome. There's no reason why you couldn't power this with schema and structured data, for example, through your website. Maybe one day.
We'll see. It's cool. And this I'm very excited about. Although if there are any Googlers missing, I'm still missing one thing. I want to be able to filter by air conditioning. This is very important when it's very hot.
Yeah.
But no, it is really nice. The price per person, and they've added some other details where basically those listings are just becoming better and better.
Yeah, and no longer do I need to go to the website and rummage around and try and find out and look at how expensive is this going to be? How busy is it? Is there a specials menu? All of that stuff increasingly gets exposed here. So yeah, you really need to be managing these profiles because people will make decisions before they ever get to your website.
Absolutely. Yeah, I use this all the time when I'm in new spots. Now, this was our biggest news in the last decade, I think. And not to overstate it. Yeah.
Not to place too much emphasis on it, but
no.
Maybe I need a soundboard. Gosh. Yeah. Google, so this is potentially slightly overstated. So John Moo, who is one of the points of contact at Google, I'm sure many of you know, said in a Webmaster Hangout video that bolding text on a page can help Google to understand what that page is about and the relative importance of text, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The reason that you would, as a writer, bold a piece of text or word is because you want to emphasize it and draw attention to it. And then, yes, of course, Google is smart enough to understand that. This absolutely doesn't mean that you should go and automatically make all of your target keywords bold or make the first sentence of every page. But there is no magic wand here. But I think the takeaway, it's important to remember that bolding and italicizing and even maybe underlining are important tools when you're crafting content that can change how the content is read, can change what the most important pieces are to a reader, and Google understands that in the same way. So use these tools the way that they're meant to be, but yeah, don't go crazy.
No, don't overdo it. It's like that with everything.
Yep.
So machine-written content may be okay for ranking soon one day. Well, I think machine-written content may be okay for ranking today if it's actually done well. The thing is, what we've been saying for quite a while now is content needs to be creative, unique, and good, and readable. And the unique part is very hard when something is machine-written. But if you can find a way around that and get your unique ideas written by machines, then you might actually be doing fairly well.
It might be that in the real world, a lot of content for SEO gets written cheaply by outsourced writers, and the quality isn't always amazing. So yeah, if you can have a system that generates a higher quality, there's nothing necessarily intrinsically wrong with that. I think there's also another category of content. So one of the examples in this is when there is a major earthquake, the summary of that event is machine written because there's no creativity in there. There was a magnitude and a location and damage reports and health notices, etc. All of that can be constructed into an article quite quickly that should rank well. That is a useful resource. It's not written by a human, but something about the lack of moving parts and the value of getting it out quickly means that it's okay. So yeah, that will become more normal for sure.
Yep. Well, of course, what's more important is that you actually write readable content, which is why you should be using our plugin to check for that. 7 prediction from Google about what's next for SEO. Now, I want to start with a very big caveat. Google, while not always against SEOs, isn't always in favor of SEO either. So that is a very big caveat because, of course, we are gaming their system. That's the whole point of what we do.
For better or worse, absolutely.
And they might not always like that. And while we try to do it with very nice methods and by actually having people improve their content and their sites, etc., it's good to keep in mind that they might not always be in favor. But then they gave 7 predictions, and you were annoyed about a few, weren't you, Jono?
Yeah, well, some of them are deliberately contentious. So this was on the Search Behind the Scenes podcast. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a few of the Googlers talking about bits of how the system works and giving away some nuggets. I think, again, this is a bit overstated. I don't think these were like formal predictions from Google. It was a interesting discussion between some people. There were some interesting nuggets, like they were saying, should people really have to learn and understand HTML, or should they just rely on things like WordPress to take care of it for them? And you could make an argument either way, right? So yes, it's great that all of this is automatic. It's one of the great things that Yoast SEO does well. You don't have to think about any of this, but maybe if you want a competitive edge, there is value in learning it and maybe tweaking some of the settings based on your unique setup. So they kind of oversimplified that. And it was the same kind of problem with all of these. We had, do we think that one day we might not need URLs? Do we think that one day we might not need meta tags? Is this all going to change? What is the world of content? The one that did frustrate me that I kind of resent is they said that maybe one day Google won't need schema.org markup and structured data. And I know we've put a huge amount of work into the Yoast plugins to describe your content with structured data. We say, here is the author, here is the date it was published, here's the stock availability of this product, here's the logo of the organization that published the website. Maybe with a perfect AI, Google could work all of that out. I don't think reliably enough. I don't think for every website and use case. I think that structured data is an incredibly powerful tool for specifically describing your business and your stuff. And I think that's not going to change. I think it's super important. It will continue to be important. So yeah, I'm going to thumbs down on some of these predictions for them oversimplifying things.
It's what they do. It's how they roll. Yeah. This I liked. It's like yes. Google saying that voice search is not the future of search. This we agree on. Voice search is search. It's not different. We're not going to optimize differently for voice search than we optimize for search. Because in search too, people are searching with ever more words and with sentence-like queries. So these are not separate things. Don't pretend that they are. Well, end of story.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so we had some resources. Tell me, is this any good?
Yes, it is. It is. So we've added this new section to the webinar because I come across all sorts of odds and ends on the web, as does the people who contribute to this, and it's worth highlighting some of them. So Ahrefs is a rank tracking platform. You may have come across it, but this was a really good resource. So one of the things that Google publishes periodically is their internal quality rater guidelines. So Google employs something like 20,000 human beings who look at search results and evaluate whether those results are good. And they have 172 pages of training and guidelines that they use to make those decisions. And it's things like, is this trustworthy? Is the logo obvious? Can you tell who wrote this? Is their quality good? Is the design trustworthy? Is the content accessible? Is it well written? All of these other factors. In fact, it mentions the word quality 404 times, which seems like an interesting coincidence when you know that 404 is an error status. But yeah, they look. This is the research they do to make sure that their algorithms are doing what they want and expect them to do. So it's a really useful resource to go and pour through and say, okay, what does success look like for Google? Don't read the 172 page version. Read this article that summarizes it. It is really, really good.
It is. Okay, there we go. Next, SEMrush. They're Ahrefs' biggest competitor in many ways.
They are good friends of ours. Yeah, it's good to do a bit of some from column A and some from column B, but also equally good research. So, we've talked about Google Discover before. When you open your Android phone or sometimes Google Chrome on your laptop, computer, you get presented with a bunch of articles, and you haven't searched for anything. They're just useful articles which are based on your search history and preferences and the kinds of things you consume and like and opt into and out of, etc. This is a huge source of traffic. It's a huge marketplace of content, and none of the conventional rules of SEO apply. There is no keyword that you can rank for or optimize. It's all based on that person's individual feed and profile. So the way you get into that ecosystem is very different. It's about becoming a trusted publisher and making sure that you have big media-centric content. It's a very different type of thinking. If you are a brand with a bit of a following and reputation, it might be that it's a really great opportunity to get traffic for breaking news and topical resources. It's really, really interesting to go and read through and see what the story is and how this works.
Cool. It is good to see them do that sort of thing. And of course, we have a lot of our own very nice content for all of you to peruse if you want to in Yoast Academy.
SEO is the route to sustainable online success and growth. Learn SEO from the experts at Yoast SEO Academy. Our practical online courses help you on your SEO journey. The courses are packed with actionable tips for beginners and experts, fun quizzes, and much more. Start learning and ranking today.
Very nice.
Now back to our regularly scheduled programming with some Microsoft news. And of course, since it's the shopping season, Microsoft Bing expands shopping options. Was this any good? I didn't even bother to look.
It's very similar to the kind of stuff that Google are doing. So when you search for products or retailers, you get a lot more information and options in the search results. So you can, for example, mouse over menus that give you information on specific deals and trends. They launched a price trending thing a few months ago that I think we covered, where they say this laptop changes in price every year. More of that sort of stuff so that you can make your purchase decision in the search results. Now, and the focus of this article is quite interesting. It says that's really good for users. It's really good as a frictionless shopping experience. Not so good for websites which rely on getting those users to come to them. And this is the same conversation we're having with regards to Google. There's an interesting trade-off of, do I optimize my presence in Google and Bing, or do I try and drag people back to my website there? You need some of both. You still need a brand. You still need content and storytelling. But increasingly, people are taking action in the search engine. So you need structured data. You need to have managed your Google My Business profile, or whatever they've called it now. You need to be playing in all of these spaces because you can't control where the consumer goes or how they behave. You can only react to where they're solving their problems.
I agree with most of what he just said that I understood.
They had a really nice quote, actually, which was that they're going from a price comparison tool to a shopping destination. And that's really the way to think about it. This is more than a search engine. This is also a marketplace. And they are a competitor or their landscape that you build on. And you need to think about it not just as the gateway.
Yeah, well, Google Shopping is doing exactly the same thing in many ways. So, yeah. Okay, so we have some WordPress news. And the first of it is a bit sad, because 5.9 is beta 1 is delayed, but actually all of 5.9 is delayed to the end of January instead of earlier. I think it was due next month, actually.
Nowish, yeah. I think.
Yeah, it's going to be later for all sorts of reasons, but mostly because full site editing isn't really done yet, and they want to ship large parts of that. So that's good. And then this, which we are a large part of and very proud of. So we, as Yoast, have a WordPress core team that works on WordPress, and they do awesome work. And they do work on WordPress that is not Yoast, but like literally on WordPress core itself. And we do that together with a lot of other people. some of those other people are in Google's WordPress team, and Google's team and Yoast's team together have set up a WordPress performance team that luckily a lot of other people were very enthusiastic about as well, and they've joined us. So we are now trying to, well, make WordPress faster, better.
I'm so excited about this. This is such a big deal. Like, this has changed the internet scale impact. It's great. Everybody's site gets faster and better.
That's the plan. We don't like small goals, so the plan is to make us compete again with some of the others, and we are actually lagging behind a bit as WordPress. So we're trying to make sure that we make it faster. I'm very happy to be working with the Google team on this, and I look forward to showing results in 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months. And as Taco just said in the chat, yay to our WordPress core team, which is people you might know from within the WordPress ecosystem if you're in there. People like Ari, Carolina, Francesca, Justin, and Sergey, who do awesome work all day long on WordPress core. And they get paid for it by us.
I do. And we'll save some rainforests along the way, which is quite a nice side effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this was probably the news that made me chuckle the most, like, sincerely, of all the news that we've talked about today. So in the beginning of this year, for those of you on Apple, you'll have realized that Apple updated and that they now ask you whether you want apps to track you, yes or no. And it turns out that when you ask people whether they want to be tracked by an app, they say no most of the time, to the surprise of absolutely no one. Which is why asking that question is important in the first place. But now companies are complaining that this is costing them a lot of money. And I'm like, yes, because you never should have been able to make that money. Sorry if I'm sounding too European in this respect, but I like my privacy.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's two interesting side notes for this. One is that within the Apple ecosystem, there's still a lot of stuff going on that looks like tracking, but is quite cleverly named something else that isn't that respectful of privacy. So this is definitely a competitive play. Like, they've made huge improvements, but they've not solved the problem. The other side is, I wonder if this is part of a broader trend we see, that making money from ads is getting harder and harder because all that middleware tracking stuff gets harder and harder and increasingly illegal in many cases. This might mean that those brands and those campaigns and those products start looking at other ways to compete. It might mean that the organic space becomes more competitive. If these big brands shift their ad budget into, hey, actually, let's create some great content at the top of the funnel, you're going to find that your business is competing against internet giants. So now is the time to get ahead, because, it's going to get busier.
It is. And also, SEO is a lot more fun than AdWords.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay, so this... you might have all seen this. Facebook has changed its corporate brand to Meta. So now Meta, the company, owns Facebook, the platform, which makes a lot more sense than what they used to have, where Facebook, the company, used to own Facebook, the platform. There's two things I want to say about this. The first, I'm very proud, and I think we are very proud. Jono and I are good friends with Facebook's CMO, Alex, and he's done incredible work on this. You might agree or disagree with the name Meta, but to do this move at all is a big move, and it's a lot of work, and I'm very proud of him for doing it. I will also say that if you've not seen the Iceland reaction to Meta, you should definitely look it up on Facebook or wherever, because it is brilliantly done news hijacking.
It is. Like, I was humming and hawing when we were looking at our notes for this, and it got me thinking, what would SEO look like for the metaverse? So the big play here behind Meta is Mark is really keen on the idea of the metaverse, which is augmented reality and virtual reality and new ways of working and online, offline react, like this whole kind of Ready Player One universe. Really interesting. I think it may or may not be hot air and nonsense. We shall see. But if it comes to pass, we're all going to need to compete for attention and discovery. what does SEO look like in a virtual reality universe where everyone's wearing headsets? I don't know. Maybe now is the time we should start thinking about that. So we'll report back maybe next month.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe we'll wait and see.
Only if Alex gets me meta swag.
Oh, yeah, true. Those hoodies look great.
Okay, and then we have a bit of Yoast news. We actually added Greek to the list of languages that we support. So to everyone in Greece, and do say hi if you're listening right now and you're in the chat. But to all of you, I say Kalispera. Yeah, we are very happy to have added Greek to our ever-growing list of languages. We've got more up our sleeves, so more is coming in that regard. And then in 17.6, we had something that's very near and dear to my heart. We added new XML, new sitemaps, and Yoast SEO. Well, they're not new. They actually do the exact same thing as they did before, except that they're a lot faster, because they are entirely based on our indexables. Why is it so near and dear to my heart? Well, because I coded it myself, mostly. I will, I'm working on the next big move, which is actually moving all of WordPress SEO, so Yoast SEO's own sitemaps, over to our new indexable structure, which is going to speed them up very nicely too. So yeah, cool. It is this. I'm very happy about this, and it shows that what we can do. If you think, hey, News SEO plugin, what is that? Well, if you're competing in Google News, or you want to compete in Google News, you need our News SEO plugin. So go check it out and go get it. Smooth. Now, that being said, our own Jono Alderson, you know, that lovely, lovely person that's been talking most of the time and that says all these incredibly sensible things, whereas I just hit my soundboard every once in a while. He is hosting. Are you hosting it? I think Taco's probably hosting you or someone else.
You know, I don't know. I've started putting together some notes for it, but I need to ask somebody I need to ask a grown-up what the plan is. But yeah, something like that.
So he's presenting. Someone else is probably hosting him. But he'll talk about structured data, which is really, really fun. It's funny. Laurie is saying in the chat, and I have to respond to this, Bossman, which is not a way that I refer to myself ever, but is a master coder. Well, yes, the Yoast SEO plugin was built by me. That's how this company sort of started. It is a decade ago, and there's now about 50 people doing the same thing, but it was me. And then, as I talked about in the beginning of our show, we will do another News SEO webinar on December 21st, which is very late in the year. Yeah, that is also a good time, and maybe already a bit too late to start thinking about, hey, what are you going to do in 2022? And it still rhymes. And as you do that, we will give you some hints and tips and talk about, hey, what could you be doing and what should you be doing? And, well, give you some stuff to think about over the holiday season. And with that, I think we're ready for some questions, and it's time to say that Jason's birthday is on the same day as one of my kids.
All right. So I see that some of you already found it, but also near the bottom of your screen there is a polls button, and I managed to create a poll so we can decide on the fate of Joost's soundboard. So that's the current vote, yes.
Perfect.
We're doing popular vote. There's no other way to properly vote, so do find it. Oh, I don't like where this is going. All right. Anyway, we also have a couple of questions, and just now there is a nice flashy green button near the bottom of your screen, unless you are watching us in full screen. In that case, you might need to unfull screen before you find the button. You click it and you subscribe to the next webinar. We try to make it as easy as we can for all of you. So I hope that for the December 7 webinar, that's a good question by Jody. I think the best place to go is yoast.com/webinar, isn't it, Jono?
Maybe.
And if not, it will be after this webinar because colleagues are listening in.
Yeah.
We have Nino here. Perfect.
I can look this up. No, yeah, there's nothing there yet. But what I can say is that this follow button here on Crowdcast, which you so nicely promoted, Taco, would actually be a great way of knowing about this. So hit that follow button and you'll never miss one of our exquisite webinars. And you'll also not miss the ones with me.
All right. So with that, we do have quite a few questions that people voted on. So let's get started with the first one. I think this was actually the first question that we had for today's webinar. And this is Jane saying, hi, I own a design agency. My website shows portfolio pages showcasing projects. My strategy so far has been to optimize each project page for a long tail keyword. However, now I think that I have so many project pages that I'm using very similar keywords on multiple pages and thus competing for the same key phrases. I don't want to delete any project pages. What do I do?
Well, this is a very common use case on ever-growing sites. It is also one of the reasons I wanted to acquire the duplicate post plugin. Because what you can actually do is combine and merge these articles into one. So you have a portfolio. The portfolio is meant to showcase the different things that you've worked on, right? And these projects, if they are alike, then it's perfectly fine to make one portfolio page that lists multiple projects of you working on something similar. And then you don't have the problem of these pages competing with each other, but you have more content to make that one page better. And then what you have to do is just create a copy of one of them. That's why you use the duplicate post plugin, because you can say, hey, I want to rewrite and republish this, and then delete the others and redirect them into the one page that you've made that covers all of it. So at that point, you're changing your portfolio architecture a bit, because you're going from individual portfolio items being individual things that you've worked on to portfolio items that actually address the type of work that you do. But from an SEO perspective, that's even better. Hope that helps.
Wow, that was really nice. A very, very clear answer.
It's almost as though I've been doing this for 15 years.
Well, it's also worth thinking about, even if you're not in that position, as you pointed out, that's the kind of thing that comes up quite often as a site naturally and organically grows. So if you have that kind of content where, yes, you have 10 posts now, but you know that a year from now you might have 100, maybe start thinking about how might I need to reshape this as it scales, and that's definitely the answer.
Yeah, and if you are at a more basic level, because I know that some of our viewers are, there's an excellent course in the Yoast SEO Academy on site structure that will help you do exactly this. So the next question is by Bianca. For a while, Google is not using the provided meta descriptions anymore. We talked about this before, and the random text they use from our web pages is often terrible. We've seen that before as well. Do you have any idea if Google will return to the meta descriptions that we provide in the Yoast plugin?
Well, they sometimes do. There is a higher chance of your meta description showing if your meta description is matching the keyword that people searched for. But Google is being very, well, obstinate in how it deals with this. And I want to say yes. We know for sure that at some point they're going to return to our meta descriptions, but I think the reality is that they're probably moving away from them more than that they're moving to them. So will we even be able to ever have meta descriptions again for some types of content? I don't know. It is really Google really wants to do this themselves, and yeah, I don't know whether it's better. I don't think it's better. I wish they would just give us a tag and say, I really mean it, show my own meta description.
Yeah.
But they refuse to do that.
If you want to be super advanced, the one thing you can do is you can tell them not to use specific parts of the page. Might not solve your problem, but you can definitely say never feature this paragraph. I'll ping a link to the documentation. You might need to get a bit hands-on, but you can wrap your content in bits that prevent them from using it. But yeah, you're still stuck then that they might just use something else that's rubbish. So really try your best for crafting something handy, but they'll do what they'll do.
And you can't wrap your entire content in this.
We experimented with that a while ago.
Technically, you can.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. But trust me, we try these things. That's sort of what Jono and I do for a living. But the thing is, solutions like that are fun for very, very specific cases.
Yeah.
But people are always going to shoot themselves in the foot with that. Which is also why this stuff exists, right? The data no snippet attribute. It's something that we could add to Yoast SEO so that you'd have a setting in Gutenberg to say, hey, don't use this block.
Interesting.
We could. Problem is, it would cause more questions than it would actually help people.
And we said last month, one of the big things we do is decide what we don't put in the plugin, because it might be self-destructive, it might be confusing, it might be the wrong decision, there might be better ways of doing it. So yeah, and unfortunately, descriptions is something we are stuck with. I like the idea that Google can do a better job than we can, but yeah, we're not seeing it yet.
Okay. Right. Whilst we go through questions, Taco, I want to highlight that Dennis was giving us some feedback in the Ask a Question thing, and I'm really appreciative of that, Dennis. So thank you. I'll not go into it right now, but we will think about it.
Yeah, we know that Nino is reading along, who's managing this webinar behind the scenes, so he definitely saw that as well. All right, so is it worthwhile getting your company's information and history along with its directors registered as a Wikipedia article? Would this help improve backlinks and/or any searching on your company and its industry?
So yes, it's a short answer. And I'm not usually that concrete, so take it for that. Having a Wikipedia article for your business validates that you are a real business. Now, not every business will get a Wikipedia article. You need to be notable enough by their standards, which are very vague to some extent. But if you can have a Wikipedia article, then yes. And if you do have a Wikipedia article, make sure that it's up to date.
And to the point on links, don't get a Wikipedia article to try and get links. Do the kinds of things that make you notable enough to get you a Wikipedia article, and you will get linked to because you are creating the news and you are being relevant, etc.
Yeah, it took me well over a decade as an internet entrepreneur to get a Wikipedia page, so not everyone gets one. And this is with me and Jono actually doing work for Jimmy Wheels, who founded Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being friends doesn't always help. Sometimes you just have to put in the hard work.
Damn it.
All right. So talking about hard work, Georgina asked, are there any other charities on this? And how can we do very low budget SEO?
Well, the first thing that you can do as a very low budget SEO is to install WordPress and use Yoast SEO and listen to all our free resources, which we have a ton of. So yeah, we'll help you. That's sort of the point of our mission, SEO for everyone. I can even say, and this is bad for our sales, but it is true, that there's nothing in SEO Premium that you necessarily need for ranking. There is a lot of stuff that'll make your life easier. So if your time is cost resource at your charity, then it might be time to spend some money on that premium plugin anyway. But we try and make sure that everything that you actually need for ranking is in our free plugin, because we believe that we should. That being said, we love charities. We love helping you out, but the best thing I can do on top of all of this is say to you, find all of our free resources. We really have a lot of them.
Yeah, and is this where I can spoil that getting Yoast SEO Premium near the end of this week might be helpful as well?
Well, it might be a bit cheaper than normal, and it might do some good for your greens.
Yep. Yeah, that's all we're gonna say, right?
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So, let me see, because I saw a question here by Evelyn. How can a service website take advantage of the busyness?
So, a service website, that's actually hard, because there are ways to game busyness. Most of them involve getting a lot of Android phones and bringing them into your store. But for a service, that's a bit harder.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the value would be either. What is the story you're trying to tell? Are you trying to say our service is really popular because it's really busy, but if you don't have a physical address people can access, how is that going to benefit you? Yeah, I think, yeah, you could definitely game it, but I'm not sure why.
Right. All right. As someone trying to learn technical SEO without a developer background, would you recommend the path of HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript, or do you have any other tips or pointers?
I'm not sure whether it's the best use of your time.
At all.
So,
technical SEO.
Well, you're muted, Jono.
Oh well, wasn't interesting anyway.
No, so honestly, and it's sort of Jono and my mission to make sure that we take care of technical SEO, so you don't have to. So what you should be doing is running WordPress, using Yoast SEO, configuring it correctly, and then writing the most awesome content and creating the most awesome content that you can. I think that is a better use of your time than learning technical SEO. Now, if you're a developer and you're building sites for your clients and you want to learn technical SEO because you have to, then start with our technical SEO course on Yoast Academy.
Yeah, and I'd maybe switch the JavaScript out for PHP if you're building on WordPress, because you're going to want to be able to change how things behave and use our APIs and filters and that sort of thing.
Yeah, in general, when you're doing technical SEO, JavaScript usually just gets in the way.
Yeah, I think that's also what Tom says in the comment. JavaScript is evil.
Well, it's not evil. It's just it's something very easily used wrong.
Right. All right. So let's talk about doing things right. Is having an FAQ section on each page you're trying to rank for a specific keyword a good idea? Or would you only have the one FAQ page for all of them? I think this touches on what we talked about last time.
Yes.
So this is the first time I'm going to say this today, right? So I'm allowed to say this. It depends.
Okay, I'll give you one.
If these FAQ sections are unique to each page, then you're fine. If they are the same on each page, then please don't do that. You'll get yourself booted out of Google faster than you want to. They literally kicked a pretty large marketplace out of the Dutch search results for a couple of days for doing just that.
All right, so make unique FAQs, and that's about it. All right, then since we have just a few more minutes left, I saw a question by Oleg that I'd like to see an answer to. Hi, thanks for your great SEO plugin. There's more positiveness for you, Joost. I have been a paying premium subscriber for 3 years, but ever since Google released the mobile-first core web vitals as a top ranking factor, speed has become the most critical factor for ranking. At least one of the factors. But what we see is that Yoast has too much nice-to-have stuff. What are your thoughts on releasing a super slim Yoast Premium where users can add, download only those functions which they need?
Yeah, don't buy into the propaganda, Oleg. First of all, any functionality in Yoast SEO that you don't use is not going to affect your site speed. Second, some of the stuff that Yoast does in your editing experience might not always be the fastest. So our readability analysis, our SEO analysis, which we do as you write, might not always respond instantly and might not always be super fast. We do those in your browser. So that's not affecting anyone else. That's literally JavaScript in your browser. It's not reaching out to our servers. It's doing it locally on your machine. That's also why it's not super fast, because we use your machine to do it. We don't use our own service to do it, which... Yeah. On the front end, I think we are the most highly optimized SEO plugin in existence. And we're constantly working on making it faster. And in our meta tag output and the stuff we do there, I don't think there's anything right now that we could take out without affecting other stuff. You're muted again, Jono.
Oh, I hate this microphone. I was just going to say also, I know that, yeah, don't buy into the propaganda. A whole bunch of other SEO plugins will tell you we output more lines of code. It's true, we do more stuff, and that doesn't make you slower. But also, having watched them tell that story and then copy our features directly and add them in and then say that Yoast is bloated, feels a little bit disingenuous, right? There is nothing in there that you should take out. All of the features that we ship in, things like the meta tags, the schema, the article handling, that is all stuff that you need in order to get a competitive edge. As soon as you start cherry picking and cutting those bits out, you're going to lose against other people who use them. It's fast, it's not slow, the number of lines doesn't matter. You need all of those things.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that.
All right. And with that, we've reached the end of today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining. Before we can leave, there's the follow button near the top of your screen. There is the poll at the bottom and Yoast. I'm sorry to say that you can bring your soundboard again with a popular vote of 63.4%. So I'm sorry, Jono, we're stuck with it forever.
Thank you, everyone. I like it. I'll bring more sounds next time.
I think you should do sound bites of famous SEOs saying smart stuff.
It depends.
I'll take your hints. I'm at Valk on Twitter. Send them to me. And more Legos is not something that anyone ever needs to say to me, Kiara. We should probably do a show about Legos at some point.
Oh, definitely. There's plenty of that at the office.
Yeah,
all
more
right.
than people can imagine.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you again for the last webinar, SEO news webinar of the year on December 21st. And of course, I want to see each and every one of you on December 7th, when Jono is getting some quality time in this webinar.
That's how we're pitching it. Quality time. Great, I love it.
Quality time with Jono. It sounds like a great title, actually.
Yep, rebrand.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.